In 1974, a 9-year-old girl stepped into America's living rooms and quietly became part of its heart. Her name was Melissa Gilbert, and for nearly a decade she would represent innocence, resilience, and the ideal of a perfect American family. Week after week on Little House on the Prairie, audiences watched her grow up on screen. Her face appeared on magazine covers, lunchboxes, dolls, and posters. Children wanted to be her. Parents trusted her. She wasn't just a child actress, she was America's daughter. But while the world embraced the character, the real Melissa Gilbert was slowly fading behind the spotlight. Melissa Gilbert's story began long before the cameras rolled. She was adopted at just 1 day old, placed into the arms of Paul and Barbara Gilbert. She grew up knowing she was chosen, told that adoption made her special. Yet as she got older, quiet questions began to echo in her mind. Who were her biological parents? Why didn't they keep her? Was she unwanted? That fear of abandonment settled deep inside her, shaping more than she realized. Her adoptive father, Paul Gilbert, was warm and loving, a man who brought joy into her early life. But her parents' marriage didn't survive. They divorced when she was still very young. Then, when Melissa Gilbert was just 11 years old, Paul died suddenly from a stroke. The loss devastated her. The man who had chosen her, who had made her feel secure, was gone. Once again, she felt left behind. By that time, Melissa Gilbert was already working in Hollywood. She began auditioning for commercials at 5 years old. By 6, she had landed roles. She quickly learned a harsh lesson. Approval came when she performed well. If she delivered the lines perfectly, if she smiled on cue, she was praised. If she stumbled, attention faded. Childhood slowly gave way to long hours on sets, memorizing scripts instead of playing outside. Then came the audition that changed everything. In 1974, Melissa Gilbert was cast as Laura Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie. Out of hundreds of young actresses, she was chosen. For a child who had always feared not being wanted, that moment meant everything. She wasn't just accepted, she was celebrated. The show became an instant hit. Little House on the Prairie climbed into the top ratings, and Melissa Gilbert became one of the most recognizable faces in America. Fan mail flooded in, award nominations followed. Viewers believed she was Laura Ingalls, strong, kind, morally grounded. But behind the scenes, Melissa Gilbert was under enormous pressure. Filming days were long and demanding. Tutors rushed her through school lessons between takes. Emotional scenes required her to access feelings far beyond her years. She portrayed heartbreak, grief, even miscarriage storylines, all before she had experienced first love. She desperately sought approval from the adults around her, especially Michael Landon, who became a powerful father figure on set. His validation felt like oxygen. Yet while the world saw confidence, Melissa Gilbert felt confusion. She didn't know who she was outside of Laura Ingalls. The lines between character and reality blurred. When Little House on the Prairie ended in 1983, Melissa Gilbert was 19 years old. For most young adults, 19 signals new beginnings. For Melissa Gilbert, it felt like losing her identity. The steady structure of the show disappeared. Casting directors struggled to see her as anyone other than the Prairie girl in braids. Then came another devastating blow. Melissa Gilbert eventually discovered that much of the money she had earned during her childhood had been mismanaged. The financial security she assumed existed simply wasn't there. Years of hard work had not translated into stability. The betrayal cut deeply. Once again, protection had failed her. Around this time, alcohol entered her life more seriously. At first, it seemed harmless, a drink to relax after auditions, wine at industry gatherings. But for Melissa Gilbert, alcohol dulled anxiety. It quieted the inner voice that questioned her worth. Gradually, drinking became a coping mechanism. Publicly, she still appeared composed. Privately, she was unraveling. She searched for healing in relationships. Melissa Gilbert married young, hoping love would fill the emptiness. Motherhood brought moments of profound joy. Holding her son felt like finally being chosen in a way that wouldn't disappear. But unresolved trauma doesn't vanish with a wedding ring. Her first marriage ended in divorce. Financial pressure mounted. Career opportunities slowed. In 2009, Melissa Gilbert filed for bankruptcy, revealing debts exceeding $360,000. Headlines were merciless. The once beloved child star was now portrayed as another Hollywood tragedy. The shame was overwhelming. Her drinking intensified. There were nights Melissa Gilbert blacked out, days she struggled to function. She had spent her entire life performing strength. Admitting weakness felt impossible. But in 2011, alone in her apartment, she reached a breaking point. For the first time, Melissa Gilbert said the words out loud. She needed help. In 2012, she entered treatment for alcoholism. Recovery was not glamorous. It was painful, raw, and deeply confronting. Without alcohol to numb her emotions, she had to face decades of unresolved pain, abandonment, grief, exploitation, betrayal. In recovery meetings, Melissa Gilbert introduced herself simply as someone struggling with addiction, not as a celebrity, not as Laura Ingalls, just Melissa. Slowly, she began to rebuild her life. She repaired relationships with her sons. She committed to sobriety one day at a time. During this period, she met actor Timothy Busfield. Their relationship grew slowly, built on honesty rather than image. They married in 2013 in a quiet ceremony, far removed from the spectacle of Hollywood. But challenges didn't end there. Years of physical strain led Melissa Gilbert to undergo multiple spinal surgeries. Chronic pain became a daily reality. The temptation to numb that pain resurfaced, yet she chose sobriety. Again and again, she chose healing. Melissa Gilbert also discovered a new purpose: advocacy. Through her memoirs and public speaking, she began exposing the darker realities of child stardom. She pushed for stronger financial protections for young performers. Her voice helped strengthen conversations around safeguarding children in entertainment. By 2025, Melissa Gilbert stands not as a child star frozen in time, but as a woman who survived extraordinary highs and devastating lows. She lives more quietly now. Fame long longer defines her. Sobriety does. Authenticity does. Advocacy does. Melissa Gilbert is 15 years sober. She continues attending meetings. She embraces aging without apology, allowing the lines on her face to tell the story of survival. When asked what she wants people to remember, Melissa Gilbert doesn't talk about ratings or awards. She speaks about resilience, about choosing yourself when the world stops choosing you, about understanding that being broken does not mean being beyond repair. The little girl who once feared she wasn't enough learned a powerful truth. Identity cannot be built on applause. It must be built from within. Melissa Gilbert's story is not simply about television fame. It is about loss, addiction, bankruptcy, recovery, and courage. It is about a child who was handed to strangers, shaped by an industry, nearly consumed by self-doubt, and who still found the strength to stand back up. And perhaps that is her greatest legacy. Not Laura Ingalls, but Melissa Gilbert, flawed, resilient, and finally fully herself.